Hello and welcome once again to Button Buddies Book Club. We are going to continue our reading of The Time Machine, starting back up at the end of Chapter 6. Under the new conditions of perfect comfort and security, that restless energy that with us is strength would become weakness. Even in our own time, certain tendencies and desires once necessary to survival are a constant source of failure. Physical courage and the love of battle, for instance, are no great help, may even be hindrances to a civilized man, and in a state of physical balance and security, physical or power, intellectual as well as physical, it would be out of place. For countless years I judged that there had been no danger of war or solitary violence, no danger from wild beasts, no wasting disease to require strength of constitution, no need for toil. For such a life, what we should call the weak are as well equipped as the strong, are indeed no longer weak. Better equipped indeed they are, for the strong would be fretted by an energy for which they had no outlet. No doubt the exquisite beauty of the buildings I saw was the outcome of the last surgings of the now purposeless energy of mankind before it settled down into perfect harmony with the conditions under which it lived. The flourish of the triumph which began the last great peace, which has ever been the fate of energy and security. It takes no art or eroticism, and then comes languor and decay. Even this artistic interest would at last die away. Had almost died in the time I saw. To adorn themselves with flowers, to dance, to sing in the sunlight, so much was left of the artistic spirit, and no more. Even that would fade in the end to a contented inactivity. We are kept keen on the grindstone of pain and necessity, and it seemed to me that there was a hateful grindstone broken at last. As I stood there in the gathering dark, I thought that in this simple explanation I had mastered the problem of the world, mastered the whole secret of these delicious people. Yes, it says delicious people. Possibly the cheeks that had fought for the increase of population. Checks, not cheeks. Fuck. Possibly the checks they had devised for the increase of population had succeeded too well, and their numbers have rather diminished than kept stationary. That would account for the abandoned ruins. Very simple was my explanation, and plausible enough, as most wrong theories are. Chapter 7. The Sudden Shock. As I stood there musing over these two perfect times of man, the full moon, yellow and gibbous, came up and out of an overflow of silver light in the northeast. Bright little figures ceased to move about below, and noiseless owls flitted by, and I shivered with the chill of night. I determined to descend and find where I could sleep. I looked for the building I knew, where my eye traveled along the figure of the white sphinx upon the pedestal of bronze, growing distinct as the light of the rising moon grew brighter. I could see the silver birch against it. There was the tangle of rhododendron bushes, black in the pale light, and it was a little lawn. I looked at the lawn again. Queer doubt chilled my complacency. No, said I stoutly to myself. That was not the lawn. But it was the lawn, for the white leprous face of the Sphinx was towards it. Can you imagine what I felt as this conviction became tone to me? But you cannot. The time machine was gone. At once, like a lash across the face, came the possibility of losing my own age, of being left helpless in this strange new world. The bare thought of it was an actual physical sensation. I could feel it grip me at the throat and stop my breathing. In another moment, I was in the passion of fear and running with great leaping strides down the slope. Once I fell headlong and cut my face. I lost no time in staunching the blood, but jumped on and ran on, with a warm trickle down my cheek and chin. All the time I ran, I was saying to myself, they have moved it a little, pushed it under the bushes out of the way. Nevertheless, I ran with all my might, all the time with the certainty that sometimes comes with excessive dread. I knew that such assurance was folly, knew instinctively that the machine was removed out of my reach. My breath came with pain. Suppose I covered the whole distance from the hill crest to the little lawn, 2 miles, perhaps in 10 minutes. And I am not a young man. I cursed aloud as I ran, at my confident folly in leaving the machine. wasting good breath thereby. I cried aloud and none answered. Not a creature seemed to be stirring in the inland world. When I reached the lawn, my worst fears were realized. Not a trace of the thing was seen. I felt faint and cold when I faced the empty space, among the black tangle of bushes. I ran around it furiously, as if the thing might be hidden in a corner, and then stopped abruptly, with my hands clutching my hair. Above me towered the Sphinx upon the bronze pedestal, white, shining, leprous in the light of the rising moon. It seemed to smile in mockery of my dismay. I might have consoled myself by imagining the little people had put the mechanism in some shelter for me, had I not felt assured of their physical and intellectual inadequacy. That is what dismayed me, the sense of some hitherto unsuspected power, through whose intervention my invention had vanished. Yet of one thing I felt assured: unless some other age had produced its exact duplicate, the machine could not have been moved in time. The attachment of the levers, I will show you the method later, prevented anyone from tampering with it in that way when they were removed. It had moved and was hid only in space, but then where could it be? I think I might have had a little kind of frenzy. I remember running violently in and out of among the moonlit bushes all around the Sphinx, and startling some of the white animals that in the dim light took for a small deer. I remember, too, late that night, beating the bushes with my clenched fist until my knuckles were gashed and bleeding from the broken twig. Then, sobbing and raging in my anguish of mind, I went down to the great building of stone. The big hall was dark, silent, and deserted. I slipped on the uneven floor and fell over one of the malachite tables, almost breaking my chin. I lit a match and went on past the dusty curtains, of which I heard. There I found a second great hall covered with cushions, upon which perhaps a score or so of little people were sleeping. I have no doubt they found my second appearance strange enough, coming suddenly out of the quiet darkness with inarticulate noises and the splutter and flare of a match. So they'd forgotten about matches. "Where's my time machine?" I began, bawling like an angry child, laying hands down upon them and shaking them up together. It must have been very queer to them. Some laughed, most of them looked sorely frightened. When I saw them standing around me, it came to my heart that I was doing as foolish a thing as were possible for me to do under the circumstances, and trying to revive the sensation for fear, for reasoning from their daylight behavior. I thought that fear must be forgotten. Abruptly, I dashed down the match and knocked enormous people over my course, when blundering across the big dining hall again, out under the moonlight. I heard cries of terror and the little feet running and stumbling this way and that. I do not remember all I did as the moon crept up the sky. I suppose it was the unexpected nature of my loss that maddened me. I felt hopelessly cut off from my own kind, a strange animal in an unknown world. I must have raved to and fro, screaming and crying upon God and fate. The memory of horrible fatigue, as that long night of despair wore away, of looking in this impossible place and that, of groping among moonlit ruins and touching strange creatures in the black shadows. At last, lying on the ground near the Sphinx, weeping with absolute wretchedness, even anger at the folly of losing the machine having leaped away my strength. I have nothing left but misery. Then I slept. When I woke again, it was a full day, and a couple of sparrows were hopping around me on the turf within reach of my arm. I sat up in the freshness of the morning, trying to remember how I had got there, and why I had such a profound sense of desertion and despair. Then things came clear in my mind. With the plain, reasonable daylight, I could look my circumstances fairly in the face. I saw the wild folly of my frenzy overnight, and I could reason with myself. Suppose the worst, I said. Suppose the machine altogether lost, perhaps destroyed. It behooves me to be calm and patient, to learn my way of the people, to get a clear idea of the method of my loss, the means of getting materials and tools, so that in the end, perhaps, I might make another. That would be my only hope, a poor hope, perhaps, but better than despair. And after all, it was a beautiful and curious world. But probably the machine had only been taken away. Still, I must be calm and patient, find its hiding place and recover it by force or cunning. And with that, I scrambled to my feet and looked about me, wondering where I could bathe. I felt wary, stiff, travel-soiled. The freshness of the morning made me desire an equal freshness. I had exhausted my emotion. Indeed, as I went about my business, I found myself wondering at my intense excitement overnight. I made a careful examination of the ground about the little lawn, wasted some time in futile questions, conveyed as well as I was able to, such as the little people came by. They all failed to understand my gestures. Some were simply stolid, some thought it was a jest and laughed at me. I had the hardest task in the world to get my hands off their pretty laughing faces. It was a foolish impulse, but the devil begotten fear and blind anger was still occurred, and still eager to take advantage of my perplexity. The turf gave better counsel. I found a groove ripped in it, about midway between the pedestal of the Sphinx and the marks at my feet where, on arrival, I had struggled with the overturned machine. There were signs of removal about, with queer, narrow footprints like those I could imagine made by a sloth. This directed my closer attention to the pedestal. It was, as I think I have said, of bronze. It was not a mere block, but highly decorated with deep framed panels on either side. I went and rapped about these. The pedestal was hollow. Examining the panels with care, I found them discontinuous with the frames. There was no handles or keyholes, but possibly the panels, if they were doors, I suppose, opened from within. One thing was clear enough to my mind. It took no very great mental effort to ensure that my time machine was inside the pedestal, but how it got there was a different problem. I saw the heads of two orange-clad people hanging through the bushes and under the blossom-covered apple trees towards me. I turned, smiling to them and begged them to me. They came, and then, pointing with the bronze pedestal, tried to imitate my wish to open it. But at my first gesture towards this, they behaved very oddly. I don't know how to convey their expression to you. Suppose they were grossly improper gestures to a delicate-minded woman. It is how it should look. They went off as if they had received the last possible insult. I tried a sweet-looking little chap in the white hair, with exactly the same result. Somehow his manner made me feel ashamed of myself. But as you know, I wanted the time machine, and I tried it once more. As he turned off, like the others had, my temper got the better of me. In 3 strides I was after him, had him by the loose part of his robe around the neck, and began dragging him towards the Sphinx. When I saw the horror and repulsiveness of his face, and all of a sudden I let him go. Thought I was not beaten yet. I banged with my fist on the bronze panel. I thought I heard something stern say. To be explicit, I thought I heard a sound of something along the lines of a chuckle, but I must have been mistaken. Then I got a big pebble from the further, and came and hammered until I had flattened the coil and the decoration, and the verdigris came off in powdery flakes. The delicate little people must have heard me hammering on the gusty outbreaks a mile away on either hand, but nothing came of it. I saw a crowd of them upon the slopes, looking furtively at me. At last, hot and tired, I sat down to watch the place, but I was too restless to watch long, and too occidental for a long vigil. I could work at a problem for years, but to wait inactively for 24 hours, that isn't a matter. I got up after a time and began walking aimlessly in the bushes towards the hill again. Patience, said I to myself. If you want your time machine again, you'll have to leave the Sphinx alone. If they mean to take your machine away, it's little good you're wrecking their bronze panels, and if they don't, you'll get it back soon enough as you can ask for it. To sit among all of those unknown things before a puzzle like that is hopeless. That way lies monomania. Face the world. Learn its ways. Watch it. Be careful being too hasty to guess things as it means. In the end, you will find clues to it all. Then suddenly the humor of the situation came into my mind. The thought of years I had studied to toil away to get to the future age, and now my passion of anxiety to get to me. I made myself the most complicated, most hopeless trap that a man could ever devise. Although it was at my own expense, I could not help myself. I laughed out loud. LOL. Going through the big palace, it seemed to me that the little people avoided me. It may have been my fancy, or it may have had something to do with my hammering at the gates of bronze. Yet I felt tolerable sure of the avoidance. I was careful, however, to show no concern or to abstain myself in the pursuit of them, and in the course of a day or two things got back to the old footing. I made what progress I could in the language, and in addition, I pushed some of my explorations here and there. Either I missed some subtle points, or their language was excessively simple, almost exclusively composed of concrete substantives and verbs. These seem to be few, if any, abstract terms, or little use of figurative language. Their sentences were unusually simple and of 2 words, and I failed to convey or understand any of the simplistic propositions. I determined to put the thought of my time machine and the mystery of the bronze doors under the skin as much as possible in the corner of my memory, so my growing knowledge would lead me back to them in a natural way. Yet a certain feeling, you may understand, tethered me in a circle a few miles around the point of arrival. Chapter 8. Explanation. So far as I could see, all the world displayed the same exuberant richness as the Thames Valley. From every hill I climbed, I saw the same abundance of splendid buildings, endlessly varied in material and style, the same clustering thickets of evergreens, the same blossom-laden trees and tree ferns. Here and there water shone like silver, and beyond the land rose into blue undulating hills, and so faded into the serenity of the sky. A peculiar feature which presently attracted my attention was the presence of certain circular wells, several, as it seemed to me, of very great depth. One lay by the path up the hill, which I had followed during my first walk. Like the others, it was rimmed with bronze, fiercely wrought and protected by a little shade from the rain. Sitting by the side of these wells and peering down into the shaft of darkness, I could see no gleam of water, nor could I start any reflection with lighted matches. But in all of them I heard a certain sound, a thud, 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 like the beating of some big engine. I discovered from the flaring of my matches that a steady current of air set down the shafts. Further, I threw a scrap of paper into the throat of one, and instead of fluttering slowly down, it was at once sucked swiftly out of sight. And that is where we will end today. Join me again for other fucked up episodes as we continue our book club reading of The Time Machine. Honestly, let me know in the comments if you genuinely enjoy this as a method of replacing lost content, because otherwise we could just avoid all this. I still have to sit here and read this, and it is weary on the throat. So, if you don't enjoy it, and I can just go about jacking off for the day instead, let me know.